Jai Guru, everyone.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Hello, welcome to our podcast, Awake, the Life of Yogananda. Today we're discussing minute 58, and you will notice we have Deeksha here with us. Deeksha, how are you today?
I'm good. Very excited to be here with you guys.
Deeksha is a prominent person in an organization called Yogananda Seva and the Young Adult Sangha, which is where we know each other. She's one of the coordinators, and I've served under her in various functions, so it's been a joy. Deeksha, tell us when you met Guruji. Tell us about how that happened.
Oh, okay. So I met Guruji 2009, I think.
And was it in a vision or spiritual experience? Or?
That'd be a little too much. I don't think I'm like that advanced. But it came through my mother, actually. So he kind of got introduced to our whole family together through my mother, who got the autobiography from someone on a random visit. So she felt like she needed to like go meet this person and be like thankful for whatever they had like helped her out with. And she took a book that she was reading. She was like starting her spiritual journey at that point and was just looking through different ones, and went with that book to like thank him. And then he like in return gave her the autobiography of a yogi. So that's how Guruji got introduced into all our lives. But she like really took it on like very thoroughly, left her job and just like would meditate very extensively in the first year at least. And so that, and I was in my 12th grade that time. So that would be like, that was like a very impactful thing in my life at least. And really like, she would read the lessons and like tell us all the stories. So it was like once I started the lessons, it was like, oh, I've like already known this story. So it was like through the stories and like her like continuously like making us sit down to meditate together as a family, etc., that I got inclined and I joined like a year later. And
Nice.
Yeah, that's how it began.
Very nice, very sweet. So family, a case of family involvement and fellowship, I suppose.
Yeah, we slowly all transitioned into the path one after the other.
Very nice. And tell us about your experience with the Awake film.
Very interesting. I guess like we hadn't seen so many like video clips like all put together about Guruji's life before that. Like everything was so written or like convocation videos or something previously. And so then watching the film was interesting because you could see it all in one place, having like randomly seen those clips somewhere before. So it gave such like a motion picture view of Guruji's life, which I sometimes like struggled to have like not imagined. So I found that really interesting. And then also like in the autobiography, he like never talked about his struggles, or like we didn't know enough about that before the movie, and that was really insightful as compared to like reading the autobiography or something else.
Yes, very much so. It's got some extremely rare footage and snippets of sounds that probably exclusively revealed in the film to all of us. Chris?
I'm curious how you got involved in running the groups that you run, and maybe you could tell us a little bit like how you got involved in them initially and what they are. Tell us a little bit more about them. There might be some people listening that might want to.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. We can plug Young Adult Sangha. But interestingly, Chris, you're a London-based young adult who are now in Brazil, but you never joined the Young Adult Sangha, so you're one of the naughty ones.
Yeah.
Naughty step. Anyway, Deeksha, please tell us.
You should join us, Chris. Yeah, how I got involved. I don't know. It was right around the time OMC got launched, and I think we were in a pandemic, and so I was like looking for things to do. And first I started with the OMC with like ushering and everything. And so I came from India and then like moved to the United States for graduate school. And in YSS, there is no concept of like young adult groups and things like that. Versus when I moved here, that was like a very interesting change, to hear that there are these groups and like you can interact. Like prior to young adult Sangha, I had like no regular contact with people my age who were on the path. Like I would go on retreats and like meet some, or like every year at like the Ranchi Sangam, like we would meet some people and I like knew some faces regularly, but we weren't like friends on like in everyday life basis. So when I like was going through like Yogananda Seva and like volunteer opportunities and like discovered what young adult Sangha was, I was very excited to find like this community. So that's when I joined. And how that was like interesting. I joined the same team that Priyank was serving in, which is like communications, and we were working on social media stuff, and then slowly transitioned through like other people falling out versus like me still having more availability into more of like a leadership role. So now Anna Devi and I like lead the program with lots of interesting young adult people together, and it's such a vibrant community, and it just like it's my most favorite like service part, I guess, from all the other ones I do. So
Yeah, to serve is so, it's such a good feeling, isn't it? It's such a great reward. So that's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, it is absolutely. And like there are like, I don't know, I think very early on my mother decided like service is like a thing that we all have to always do, and there was no resistance at all in me and my sister. And like we always felt like this was like a great way of like staying in touch, even when like lots of things were going on in your life. If like something, like if somehow like SRF or YSS would start to drop off, if you have service, like it was very easy to plug back in, and like not lose sight completely, especially when you're living on your own and like don't have the spiritual family that we used to have at home, like continuously like pushing each other. So that's why like I really enjoy service and like always want to keep it like really close to myself.
Very beautiful. And it's been lovely working or serving with you, Deeksha. She's taught me a lot about how to do design work, and most of our young Instagram pages from the skills she's patiently taught us. Do this, don't do this color doesn't go, all that kind of good stuff. But let's talk about the film now. So minute 58. Minute 58 is wholly monopolized by a gentleman named Leo Cocks. And Leo Cocks, Chris has really got into this character, so we're gonna give him a bit of the limelight. Somehow I think maybe he was one of your friends in a previous life or something, I don't know. So like Chris has been so enthusiastic about Leo, more so than any other minute, so I'm expecting big things. Anyway, so Leo, he really has this lovely emotional sharing about his really deep feelings, deep experiences with Guruji, and how they transformed him, and how he would kind of patiently work on Leo's spiritual kinks, and straighten him out, and not without some pain. And that was certainly felt in how how emotionally he was speaking about it, and especially in the lines where he's like where he said it's a friendship that and a love that he took you as you were, and he gave it all to you as much as you could take. And I think that really encapsulates a lot of what he said, and it was so emotional. It kind of pulls my heartstrings just even reading it and hearing it. Every time I hear it, it's one of the more moving parts of the whole film and the script, actually, in my opinion. So I think it's a worthy discussion to have for the whole minute, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to split out this minute into firstly talking about Leo Cocks, and then we're talking about we're going to talk about a little bit about psychiatry and Guruchiatry and self-help, and then things like unconditional love and why we why we resisted change, or why we may resist a master's guiding hand and influence in our lives, and that good stuff. So Chris, sorry, Mike, you were saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you said, that he was so appreciative of Guruji giving him unconditional love, taking him where he was. And that reminded me of, like 3 minutes ago, we were talking about Herb Jeffries, who said he had a quite illustrious lifestyle before he met Guruji. And he had this story where he said, yeah, you can do all those things, but if you do Kriya Yoga, they might fall away from you. And that seems to be a theme with a lot of the early devotees, right? They came, they met Guruji, they had no concept, they had no idea what it was that he was teaching, but they knew that this was the right thing for them, and they changed their lives.
Indeed. So Chris, tell us about Leo Cocks, who is a former monastic disciple. So that would probably imply, and I don't know, guys, maybe we should have done this research, but he probably entered the monastic order and left at the lay or the novice state, where you're deciding whether or not. I don't imagine he was a brahmachari or a brother, but I could stand to be corrected. But Chris, tell us about Leo. Perhaps you know the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, I'll start with just saying that when I searched who he was, obviously the title did catch my interest. He was a former monk, so he clearly has a story. And I wondered, okay, well, why is this chap in the documentary? It caught my attention, and I googled him, as I tend to do, these people that are in the documentary, and I saw a website come up, and it's called I Became My Heart. And there's a great little story here about Leo and his journey with Yogananda. And he was there in 1949. He became a monk, and he actually only came across Yogananda a year before. So he really kind of delved in quickly to this monastic lifestyle. So he first met Yogananda October 1948, and how he got introduced to Yogananda was through his family. So his mother and family were students of the Vedanta. So they had heard about Yogananda. They mentioned it to him, to Leo. Leo then was in the area and decided to go see Yogananda talk. And there's a great little passage in a book that a friend of Leo's put together, I think since Leo passed away, of Leo's memoirs. And in the memoirs, there's story after story of these amazing moments that I had with Yogananda. And I'll share a few. I'll just fire through them because there's literally so many that we just don't have the time today to go into all of them. But I'll go into some of them. But one of them was the first time he met Yogananda, the first time he saw Yogananda. He was sitting in the back of the church, and Yogananda came in, and he prayed and he chanted and he meditated. And as soon as he did that, Leo reports that everything opened up, and he said that I became my heart, my chest opened up, my heart had wings, and I flew up out of my body about 8 or 10 feet. I could see him, and I instantly felt, oh, he is my guru, he is my guru. And I thought, oh, at last I found him again. That was when I knew he was an avatar. That feeling of expansion lasted for quite a while, and I came back, and then I came back to normal. So that was the first time he had met Yogananda. And since that day, he had spoken to Yogananda many, many times over the course of about a year, until he became a monk. And his journey, I'll just tell you his very short life story here, but his journey, he went into the Navy, and Yogananda foresaw this, and he said to Leo on the first day that he met him, to make sure that he wrote to him. And at the time, Leo didn't know what he meant by that, because he didn't realize he was going to be taken off to work to be in the Navy. So Yogananda had already foreseen this relationship that they were going to have, and said, make sure you write to me wherever you go. So Leo wrote to him at least once a week, and he was pestering Yogananda, saying, hey, I want to be part of the monastic life. I want to be part of the monastic life. And similarly to some of the stories that we talked about in the previous minutes, Yogananda really tested him and said, no, 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 it's not the time. It's not the time. We don't have space in the ashrams. We don't have space. But eventually Yogananda gave in to him and said, okay, you can join. The problem then was he was stuck in the Navy and he couldn't get discharge. So he was writing to Yogananda, hey, I need help. I'm stuck in the Navy. And there's a cool little story where Yogananda wrote to him and said, I've been praying to Divine Mother for you to be released from the Navy. Please tell me what is going on. Give me an update. And 2 days later, and he'd been trying for a long time to get out of the Navy, 2 days later after receiving the letter, he was given a discharge. Then the story really goes on to when he joined. He was going through all these tests that Yogananda was placing in front of him. But there was a lovely story when he was very, very cold one night, and it was late at night, and he was there with other monks, and he was shivering. And Yogananda said, okay, to Anandamoy to say, go, please get me my robe. And there's a great story here where Anandamoy goes, gets Yogananda's robe and brings it out. Yogananda gives it to Leo, and Leo's thinking to himself, oh, you know, this is a great souvenir. I might just forget to give this back to Yogananda. And then Anandamoy turns and says to him, no, Leo, don't you forget to give that back. So immediately Leo is like, oh, she's pretty advanced too. It's not just Yogananda that can read my thoughts. But then the story goes on that he's feeling a bit egotistical, thinking, oh, I must be special. I must be special. And I've been given Yogananda's robe. And he was daydreaming like, I must have been with Yogananda when he was William the Conqueror, one of his great captains. And later, Yogananda said to Leo to come to him. And he put his hands on both of his knees. And he had bad knees, very, very bad knees, Leo. And he thought, oh, this is Yogananda's going to tell me who I was in a previous life with him. He's going to tell me I was with him in battle, and I was his second man in command. And Yogananda simply turned and said to him, Leo, you had too much sex in a previous life. And so that's kind of why your knees are bad. So it brought him crashing down in front of many other monks to reality. And a master often did this to kind of curb his ego. He had this great ego. And master often brought him crashing down to reality. But Priyank, do you want to jump in to comment there?
I'm just intrigued by this glint in your eye when you're talking about Leo. What do you think this connection is that you have with this disciple?
Do you know, I relate to Leo because he struggled a lot. There's a story that he struggled a lot, but the stories that Leo tells a master, and he has all these letters the master wrote to him, and time again he says to Leo that no matter how difficult your past karma might be, you must use your willpower to overcome. And so I really relate to it. I'm looking at this saying, you know, Leo was pulled in many different directions in life, and actually later on in his life he was pulled away, and he left the monastic order and he married somebody. And Yogananda foresaw this and said to Anandamoy and others to not follow him, to let him go. He had to go down that path. But what was curious to me, which was really heartwarming, was Yogananda's divine friendship and love. And this is what Leo talks about. This is what really caught my attention. Like, why is this man, you know, here, and why did this strike such a chord with me? And there's story after story in this little book of Yogananda's devotion to him, to say, I'll protect you. I'm with you beyond this life. You know, for you to devote yourself to me in these teachings will, you know, will be very, very, very good for you in afterlife. So I just thought that this is the exact the ultimate of what a guru-disciple relationship should be in some way, right? That here's somebody who's struggling and who loves master dearly. And there's so many stories that you could go into of Leo giving himself wholly to this individual, to this avatar, and it being given back to him in droves, time and time. There's a lot of chickens going on in the background, so maybe I'll just
Yeah.
pause on and film it. That's why I love the story. So when I read this book, I thought, God, this is such a great example of Yogananda just pulling this man over the line, just time and time again, you know, forgiving him for times when he went straight and went wrong. And you know, Leo tested that relationship a lot, and there's just letters of Yogananda saying, I forgive you, now you must forgive yourself. It's just such a beautiful relationship.
And do the chicken noises imply that you're scared of testing the relationship with Guruji?
They do that all the time. It's no,
But I think perhaps the first time since we recorded the podcast that they've been this animated.
yeah, it could be. It could be. You know, you could read into it. Yeah, possibly that's true. Yeah, I think possibly, you know, possibly to my mind, having come into the relationship with Guruji late and knowing, you know, I've been going through a life of, you know, alcohol and so on and so forth. Possibly that is a feeling of worthiness there, you know, and that test, you know, am I worthy of the love and so on and so forth. And maybe that's something we all have questioned at some point or other. So it may be some common thread, but Guruji, as Leo said, gave himself entirely to that relationship unconditionally. And it's really inspiring to read. And I think there's something to note here that, yes, Leo did leave the monastic order, but he kept his relationship with Guruji as a devotee, as a Kriyaban. So he didn't just fall off the wagon altogether. There is a good ending to this story. Thankfully, he did commit to Guruji until the very end. So he's not like some kind of rebel to the order or anything. He did keep his word to Guruji that he would continue his practices. Mike, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, those kind of people fascinate me too, like Leo, because he seems to be a real character. He seems to be very strong-willed, and yet he has this really strong connection to Guruji. I mean, it's quite impressive. You might, like, I never gone to a temple and then I left my body and went 10 feet up and kind of had like an experience. And that's the first time he sees him, right? So I feel like oftentimes it doesn't really matter what kind of person you are. It matters more that you love, your heart is in the right place and you love for Guruji is there, and then you can move mountains and be the best devotee ever. Or everybody has a very special way of ending the cycle of incarnations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Deeksha, sorry, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the point that you said, Chris, about like him being an ex-monastic and that being important was so relevant actually, because when I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, like that really, and then him being included in a film like Awake is really a good example because of like how Lahiri Masha was and like how our path in general is, that you don't need to be just a monastic, right? Your household or life can be just as important and can also like both lead to the same end depending on how you like lead those lives. And that's like the important factor for us. And so when I see that, I'm like, okay, great, I can continue down the path that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And I can still get there.
Sure. Priyank.
Yeah, I'm sure, Deeksha, that's a recent musing you've had, seeing as you're getting married soon. Congratulations, by the way. I haven't spoken to you since that announcement. What's it called? Yeah, so I remember someone asked the monks once about this, about like, oh, you know, if I become a monk, like, do I get to like, you know, I can imagine like we'll have all these special things and like I'll be able to advance much faster. And then one of the monks was like, you know, you have everything that we have. There's nothing like secret that they keep behind just for like people that are in the monastic order. You have all the tools that we have. So you don't, you know, whether or not you become a monk is at your, you know, your discretion. But in terms of the techniques and the practices and the, teachings, everything is there for you in the inside and outside the monastic life. So good point, Deeksha.
Yeah. There's Mike, you mentioned there about Yogananda's relationship with, or Leo's relationship with Yogananda. There's a part in the card, if you could read out, under Leo Cocks, there's the Master Becomes Light card. If you have that in front of you, maybe you could that read.
One of the first services after I was accepted, I saw Master at Hollywood. I was concentrating on him. He was talking at the front, and then all of a sudden, his body just became his golden light all over. It got brighter and brighter. I closed my eyes, and it was still there. It was the same with my eyes, opened or closed. There was no more body of Yogananda. It was just a voice in his light. There were several minutes like that. Then the thought came to me from him. This is who I really am. Afterwards, the light condensed and the image of his body got stronger. It was like the light got back injected back. It was like the light got back, injected back in the body, and he came back to normal. Then it was just like a regular service. I never did speak to him about it or anyone else. I don't know if anybody else ever saw that or had that individual experience. I never looked for experiences. It almost seemed like a welcoming gift from him.
Such a nice little passage, isn't it? What an amazing experience. So I think this was after he joined as a monk. And you can imagine like what little experiences would each individual monk have that maybe hasn't been spoken about, that Yogananda gave to them as a unique gift. So I thought that was lovely. And there's a funny little passage. I can say maybe we could end on this, because I could probably talk about it for 20 minutes. If you actually have the means, on Amazon, you can buy this little book. It's like literally $1.30 on the US Amazon list, and it's full of these stories. But there's one nice story where Leo was being asked by some of the devotees if he thought Yogananda was an avatar, and he replied like, "Yes, I've always thought he was an avatar. From the first time I met him. Obviously, we now know the story as to why." But another monk said to him, unless you really know, i.e., unless Yogananda tells you, it's probably not good to be even answering that way that you think he is, which I thought kind of strange. But anyway, so Yogananda and Leo then meet some days later, and Yogananda asks him, "So what's all this business about me being an avatar?" So he had either heard or knew about this. And Leo explained to him, and Master turned around and said, very, very coyly, very kind of tongue-in-cheek, maybe, he said, "Well, I will say this: whenever a teaching of this magnitude is brought, God always sends it with an avatar." And I just thought that was such a cool
Mic drop, right?
mic drop.
Yeah.
Such a cool line, just with no ego. God sends these teachings with an avatar. That he's the vessel. It's through him that the teachings come. But there's so many little stories like that. So I would encourage anybody to go pick up the book and read it. Some beautiful exchanges between the two. Deeksha.
I just wanted to point out one thing from the previous story, though, which I felt was super, super important, on how he didn't talk about his experience with other people, and that's something that we're so encouraged to do, to not keep talking about our special spiritual experiences. And I know sometimes people get really excited and they want to talk about it and they want to share it, but you should just keep them to yourselves. And I think that one's super important to reiterate.
Yeah,
we talked about this in the past, about the intimate moments you have with your friends or your dearest loved ones. You don't just go out in the street sharing it. And this is the most intimate relationship of all your earthly incarnations. So there's no need, or it would be kind of like a violation of that relationship just to just go blurbing and boasting and, you know, all that kind of stuff that some people, I'm sure, have the inclination to do. Yeah, Chris.
Sorry, there was actually one more story, forgive me, that I thought we may have time. I know I was given like roughly 10 minutes to kind of go into this, but you know, it's good. It's something that, you know, not having been physically with Master, certainly in this life, is Yogananda having taken on people's karma, devotees' karma, in person. So when he was doing certain kriyas, he would take on some karma. And there was a story that Leo said that he went into a room where Master was lying on the bed, and he'd never really seen Master lying on the bed. And immediately he was thinking, gosh, what's wrong? What's wrong? And Yogananda, reading his thoughts, said, it's my legs. This is because of the last kriya. And again, he was thinking, you know, what's it like to have taken on all that karma? And Yogananda answered, you know, the pain is like a saw going through my leg. What Jesus suffered on the cross for hours, I suffered for months in my legs. And he said, then Divine Mother told me not to give the last kriya ceremony. But I know you all wanted it so bad, so I decided to give it anyway. And Leo's comments really here was that, you know, that was the state of his consciousness. He, you know, even though Divine Mother told him, you know, one thing, Yogananda said, no, I'm going to do it another way. So he really was so committed to his followers. And then Leo jokes here to say that he thought that, you know, one whole leg of Master's pain must have been for his own bad karma. I just thought that was kind of very fitting to what he was saying in this minute in the documentary, that Yogananda gave everything that he could, and as much as you could take, you know, he gave to you. So I thought that was quite a nice little passage. Mike.
So nice to, I feel like this is almost like a behind the scenes dialogue, right? That you see in the life of a guru, right? If they made like this reality show documentary, you know, you would kind of see that karma he takes on has real consequences on his life, right? And that he's goes so far and even tells them why is this happening. Was that last kriya, and then he feels the immediate effect, makes it so much more real, all the blessings that the gurus bestow on us.
Mm-hmm. And still do beyond the physical. And I think there's so much there that we don't physically see. So these little stories are so great to have, really, to reflect on. That's me done for the stories. You know, I could probably talk for another 20 minutes on them if you want.
Chris, maybe you should start a spin-off podcast on Leo Cocks. The life and pastimes of Leo.
Yeah. That's spot on. Good old Leo.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the themes that are, you know, that are prevalent in this minute, and in some of the things, you know, some of the angst that Leo has. And I mentioned that I quoted earlier something that my own making, psychiatry versus Guruchiatry and self-help. And what I mean by that is that not enough people, in my opinion, place the emphasis on the prevention of mental illness and problems, rather than just when they come, then they firefight, i.e. with, you know, traditional Western medicine, i.e. psychiatry, and sometimes you know, medication. You know, with health, you know, we generally, you know, we go to the gym, we try and keep, you know, we watch our diet, so we prevent, you know, illnesses from occurring, not illnesses, or, you know, weight being gained and cholesterol and all that stuff. But we don't really do that with well, generally the population doesn't really do that with mental health, do they? I know it's, you know, mindfulness and all that's becoming a big thing, but it's still not like, you know, it's still not as you'd expect, like a majority of the population to be doing it, is it? I mean, we're obviously fortunate that mindfulness and, you know, that's like, you know, basic level stuff for the techniques that we're doing. But yeah, Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first, kudos on the word Guruchiatry. Very, very creative. And you're absolutely right. And I feel when you go through the lessons and you go through all the different tips of how you are supposed to live, how you are, he talks a lot about health. He talks a lot about mental health. He talks a lot about the importance of happiness. God wants us to be happy. And it's like you said, if we follow that, we kind of get into this kind of preventative mindset that we want to be happy and we want to be healthy. And the natural instinct of humans, however, is the opposite, right? I remember Bhaktananda told me once, humans, they only change until the water goes, until here just under the nose, and he said some only when it goes just above the nose. And it's so true, because that's kind of when we really feel the strong, suddenly we have a really strong incentive to do something, and then it's sometimes too late. And that's one of the unfortunate truths of life. And the Guru tries to tell us that path, that if we are mindful with our health and happiness from the beginning, then we won't have to go through those difficult times.
Deeksha?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is so pertinent, right? Because anytime you're talking to someone who's like not a devotee or something, and they like get to know that you're on a spiritual path, like their first response is, oh, I'm like doing well, I like don't need it right now. Or they're like, I'm super busy right now, once I get free in life, or like to a different stage in life, then I'll like sit down and maybe like do it, like thinking like it's some like old people thing where you do it towards the end of your life. And I'm like, but like the stress of your life is already like gone by at that point. Like, how is this like not useful to do earlier on? And like it really reminds me of like Smarnanandji's story on how he like joined only because like he was interested in like stress management and like better concentration, and like that was his like sole goal. He was like, God, whatever, like I don't know. When he met like one of the wisest monastics, like I don't know, years ago, and he was like, okay, like if this will help me with my like concentration and things like that, I will like do it. And but he was like, okay, I'll do it with like full dedication and willpower. And then that has now led to him being like the monastic that we know. So it's like so important in that sense.
Very good point. Chris?
I was really just going to touch on relativity in some ways, like pain and pleasure. And to some extent, you know, you can feel real pain if you have mental suffering. I think, you know, certain experiences can be very painful. But what is that to do? You know, what is pain? And we read in Yogananda's teachings, they're kind of prompting you to take action. Like, okay, there's probably something wrong here, and then to calmly look at it and analyze, and to come out of it stronger. That pain can be that fuel. So that just whenever I hear you talk, Priyank, you know, we have talked, I think it was with Masvidal and others, about this kind of epidemic of mental illness that we see, and the response is pretty nice. You know, it's in society now to have wellness, mental wellness. But yeah, I just see it as a good thing, really, in some ways. Like, there's a lot of suffering in the world, but the pain hopefully should be little, you know, pokes and prods to people to say, hey, you know, wake up, you know, you're doing something wrong. And hopefully that really spurs more growth and momentum toward, you know, the yoga way of life, meditation, and so on. Whether people think that meditation is just to relax, I hear that a lot. Oh, meditation just really relaxes me so much. It doesn't matter if they don't know what's actually happening. To some extent, you know, they could be blissfully ignorant, you know, for all I care. But yeah, I just think that, yes, there is a lot of suffering. Yes, we're seeing this widespread now, certainly in the West. But I'm optimistic that it's going to be like rocket fuel to greater paths.
Mike?
I also wanted to mention one thing, that it's not only important, I think, to just have like the spiritual lifestyle, but it's so important to have a guru, because the guru is actually the one that you can turn to create a spiritual relationship with. And I strongly believe the guru is actually the one who in person actually helps you a lot of the time. So you pray for something to your guru helps you, or you meditate, your guru is there and tries to get you forward. And this is such a good example. Our friend Leo Cocks here, who mentions how he takes our karma off us, right? Which I feel in turn then has a real world effect on your life. There's probably a lot of bad times that you didn't have to go through because of that.
Yeah, that's unquantifiable, isn't it? The amount of how easy or how much more fluent your life is now that you've made Guruji at the center of it, or made Guru your chief psychiatrist, the Guruchiatrist. Chris?
One more story from the book. Very short. There's a great little passage of Leo's friend. Leo's friend Master was very fond of, and I think the story goes that Master was really trying to convince this friend not to go to Vietnam, I think it was, or sorry, to a war. I think it was Vietnam. Sorry, maybe somewhere else. Vietnam was in the 60s, right? So it probably wasn't Vietnam, somewhere else. He was going off to a war to fight for the US, and Master was really trying to convince him not to go. But he went with Master's blessing, and he had many occasions where he just he had a scathe with death. He almost died on many occasions, and like people around him were dying and he was surviving. And later Master then said that he had spent a lot of time in this country, wherever it was, I forget it was Vietnam or wherever it was, it wasn't Vietnam, but Master had said that he had been spending a lot of time over there. So Master had kind of gone with him to protect him, and he had kind of said this to Leo, like, hey, I've been very active, with your friend. So he came, and the friend came back with all these miraculous stories about how he had survived like tank attacks and all sorts of things. So yeah, he's with us in many ways, even those who don't really go down that path. Master has maybe shared lives with in the past and so on, but dedication.
Yeah, there's that really good like picture or like meme of like like there's a man who's like hit by a rock, and and he's like, the quote is, "Oh my God, how can you let this happen to me?" And the rock's been hit by the rock, you can see, and then like in front of him, God is like doing this, and he's preventing a million rocks from getting him, but that guy can't see that image. But yeah, Mike, I really liked your Bhaktananda analogy about we don't get to make that change, or we don't realize we need to make the changes until the water is at nose level and we're about to submerge. Particularly because I just came back from a swim, and and I was doing tumble turns, when you flip round to do the fancy turns, and I've got this nose thing, and the guy was like, "Oh, does that thing work?" I was like, "Sometimes." Sometimes it leaks. I was just thinking of that. So thinking of that analogy. But let's talk a little bit about what there's no Swami Ananadamoy is not in this, but he was in the previous minute. And I don't think we did enough justice to some of his messages, but he talks about this in his talk, "Your thoughts can change your life." And I just want to play you an extract of his talk on that. So listen to this.
Means simplifying our lives. Simplifying not the external life necessarily, but the inner thought life. I'll tell you an old story. A few years ago, some of us had to go, just a couple of us had to go to Europe to take care of some business for the organization. And in Paris, we finished our work sooner than we expected. And so I went to the travel agency to change the flight reservations. And it was the height of the tourist season. And that place was packed with people. And there was a tremendous vibration of tension and of impatience. And there was a woman who was at the counter, and she had a great big bag, and she was looking for something in her bag and couldn't find it. And then finally, exasperated, she turned that whole thing upside down, and everything came out. Everything. And there was a ripple of laughter going through the whole place, and everybody relaxed, including that woman. Because what she had in her bag, you wouldn't believe it. It was more interesting than Paris. But you know, if you're sensitive, you are learning through things like that. And I thought, this is a reminder, what am I going to do with the bag of my mind? And so I would like to caution you, use your discrimination. I realize life is very complex today, but there is a lot of stuff that the world is trying to throw at you. Don't take it all in. Don't take it all in. Do you watch television? Huh? Do you watch the news on television? Don't. Then there's another aspect. My room at Martha Center has a door which opens to the backyard. And usually I keep it open at night because I like to have fresh air. And so recently at night I sat on my bed for my evening meditation and had turned the light off, and then I heard a noise at the door inside the room, and I thought probably a cat. I switched on the light and looked. It wasn't a cat, it was a skunk. And he was already inside. And he came in, he checked out the whole room, everything very carefully, very systematically, and I didn't move. You don't move if you have a skunk in your room. And so it was a beautiful animal, and carried just a tiny touch of fragrance. Really, I really admired that. Just a tiny, very scientific, just a tiny touch. May have been a girl skunk. So anyway, finally she left. You know what they are saying? Our mind is a room with one door, and you have the key to that door. And it is up to us to decide who and what is coming in.
Chris, how many unwelcome people do you let into the door of your mind?
People.
Not necessarily people. People is a metaphor.
How many
Skunks. Skunks probably not around near where you are they?
Oh, they are. They go
Oh,
after
God.
many times. I'm in battle with the skunks here. I battle with them every week. How many is too many? I suppose. You know, I think one of Master's great teachings is the environment that you keep. You know, and we talk about physicality and influence people might have, but what's more important is the influence that they've had mentally, and I suppose it's one of the lessons that I've taken in that it's very important mentally, not to let this in. Can I just say the timing and the comedic timing there is just impeccable. You can be a stand-up comedian,
phenomenal.
so great. But yes, such a great way to impart quite a serious teaching, one of Yogananda's great teachings. Yeah, meanwhile, I've got another animal, a stray cat that comes looking for milk and things.
I'll ask you a different question, Mike. How many, the handbag analogy of all that useless stuff? Tell us about the handbag of your mind. What's the ratio of useful versus useless? I know Mike has got like the most knowledge I know from any guy, I think, or any guy or woman. So tell us
about the bag of my mind.
Yeah, tell us
about. Interesting question. I do feel like I mean, it depends. I do like to travel light, for example. I do like to keep things simple, but it always happens especially once you are too long in one place, or once you are getting really comfortable, you just acquire more stuff. And every now and then, I feel like you need those kind of moments where you are at the airport and you just turn your luggage upside down and then go through it and see, do I really need that thing? Do I really need that thing from 15 years ago? Is that still important in my life? And Dayamata, she once gave a really great advice. She said, if you have something in your house and you haven't looked at it, and it's not like something with sentimental value, she was more talking about books and things, and you haven't looked at it in 1 year, in 2 years, then maybe you should think about giving it away. and that's a really good rule. Do I follow it 100% of the time? Maybe not, but I try to kind of have a handle on things. I don't want to become like this guy who hoards everything. I like it very clean and minimalist usually.
Interesting. Deeksha, I didn't want to ask you about the handbag question. I thought it may be perceived incorrectly, so I thought I'd switch it to Mike.
Funny enough, I never carry a handbag.
Yes.
Never. I just have my phone in my pocket, and my phone has my cards behind it, and that's all I carry.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. You're going to make a good wife. So the next question is unconditional love. He talks a little bit about unconditional love in his monologue in this minute. So let's talk a little bit about it. And I'm just thinking about it in terms of how unconditional love, like giving unconditional love, how it can help you personally. I think about the blessings that I receive in my life, and I'm sure that wouldn't be the case. I'm definitely not worthy of all of them, but giving the unconditional love that I have done, I probably feel grants me some of those blessings that I have earned. And how do I take advantage of it? Because the gifts that you do receive, you have to show appreciation to God and gurus, right? And personally, I do that by being loyal to master as best I can in my spiritual life, and obviously outwardly I volunteer a lot, share that joy that I have, I suppose, and this podcast is part of that. But just thinking about what it means when he says, for example, in this minute, he says, I've given you my unconditional love. Do not fail to take advantage of it. That's what Guruji says to Leo. It's really deep, isn't it? Do not fail to take advantage. How can you take advantage of Guruji giving you his unconditional love? It's really, Mike, tell us.
I'm not able to tell you because I only have my own theories about it. But I do feel like this having a personal relationship with the guru is so important. And that's what Guruji did with a lot of the disciples, and that's why they have so many amazing stories. You know, they all felt like he was approachable, he was there for them when they were going through troubles. They went to him, and I feel like it's the same way. Even if the guru is not in the body, you talk to him, and those little things that happen in your life because of that are like little miracles too. And like Deeksha said, that's the kind of stuff you try to keep to yourself. But I feel like this is the kind of offer that Guruji makes to us. We accepted him as our guru, and when we have troubles, we offer them to him, and then he will help us resolve them.
Deeksha?
Yeah, I think one way I like really utilize this unconditional love is like every time I'm astray, and then I like remember that I have like fallen off the track. I know that he's like always waiting for me with like open arms. He's like not going to judge me for it at all. Like I might judge myself and I might like be hard on myself, but he's going to like love me still, like without any doubt. And I think that's like my like biggest like thing, and which is why like I keep like trying to stay. I mean, like I have to like self-guilt myself, because I'm like, oh, he's not going to guilt me, but like I should guilt myself, I guess. So, yeah.
Use that as like personal motivation, I suppose. Chris?
I think all of this is bang on the money. And if I was being specific about Leo, why maybe did he say that specifically to Leo? I mentioned earlier on one of the letters that Yogananda wrote to Leo. He ended the letter by saying, "I forgive you. Now you need to forgive yourself." And I think that was specifically to Leo's mindset. He was very judgmental of himself and really criticized himself a lot, you know, and you can see that in the letters. And I think often he maybe said, you know, to Guruji, like, please take me back, kind of thing. You know, I've strayed, take me back. And Guruji always said, you know, yes, but you need to work hard. Yes, but you know, you've got to apply the teachings. But if I was to just look at Guruji's teachings, like Guruji says, you should perfect love with your closest family members and friends, and then you should perfect it then, you know, in the next layer of that circle, and the next layer to the nation and to the world. And he talks to like, if you can't really perfect that unconditional love with your the closest people in your life, the family, friends, it's going to be pretty damn tough to apply that to people who you've never met, or who maybe you think don't deserve it for any reason outside of that. But yet Guruji has this unconditional love for everybody and everyone, which is such a great teaching, isn't it? So he's kind of applying his own teaching to Leo and crew by saying that.
Yeah, Deeksha?
Yeah, like this whole, I think like family is like the hardest to, like we find it so hard to like apply it to our family though, right? Because that's like, those people, those souls have come back into our life because either we had like a great relationship or like some conflict that our like souls together need to resolve. And so like, you know how to push each other's buttons like the most. So it's such a struggle. But I think we get better and better at it with time and effort. But also this idea of like loving everyone unconditionally, especially like with people that you don't understand, like with the concept of war, and like with the concept of like people who are in prison, etc., right? Everyone's tendencies is to like talk badly, bring them down, but our teachings talk about sending them unconditional love, sending their soul more love, so that the soul can really like come through and express its true self. So how to love something that doesn't like look the way you want it to, or like is expressing the qualities that you completely don't relate to, but still like to be able to like send that love through, I think like will really help us in like learning more unconditional loving ourselves.
Yeah, certainly. Sometimes it's easier to be nicer to the man on the street than to your sibling that maybe frustrating the hell out of you. Chris, you put your hand back down.
I put it back down. I just agree with Deeksha. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Interestingly, about you said loving your neighbor, loving your family, loving the world, loving everyone in the universe, and I think then it goes on to loving everyone in the astral world, loving everyone in the causal world, and in all of God's good creation and manifestation. But let us hear from Deeksha. I've sent you something on that messenger, Deeksha, what our Param Guru said about the subject and how he imparted it to our Guru.
I remember when my master, Swami Sri Yukteswar, asked me, "Do you love everybody equally?" I said, "Yes." But he said, "Not yet, not yet." Then my youngest brother came to study in my school at Ranchi, and I had that consciousness that he was mine. I realized then why my master had said, "Not yet." Gradually, that consciousness wore off, and I realized that my brother was but a part of all humanity, which I loved. One day, again, my master asked me, "Do you love the whole world?" I just said, "I love." And he smiled and said, "Your work is finished."
Very nice. Very beautiful. So just reading that last part again. Do you love the whole world? I just said, "I love." And he smiled and said, "Your work is finished." Beautiful. Deeksha, you have a sibling, don't you?
Yep.
If I asked you, do you love the whole world? Would you think of your sibling or more than the world?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I haven't like transitioned that completely. Though I remember there being a time when I was like actively thinking about this and thinking that, oh, if this like I guess I was like thinking more in my parents' terms, and I was like, if they like leave my life suddenly, I know I would be really sad, but then I understand that it's a part of like the whole system together, and they're just like one of the souls, and so like I have to be even-minded about it. And I don't know like how much would I practically be able to implement, but I like remember this like random like trail of thought once like going through my mind a few years ago. And then like I remember thinking about it in terms of relationships as well, of like, okay, like this person's in my life, I really love them right now, but if like they leave tomorrow, it's not like should I be like so tied to that one love when like everything around me is based on love and I should be loving everyone? And like what does that mean for my relationships in general? And I don't think I have a great answer on like what my thought process should be, but I remember struggling with these thoughts.
Certainly a work in progress for all of us, right? I suppose if we could answer just saying "I love" and actually mean it, not just like say it. It's easy to say, isn't it? I love everyone. I love my neighbors. I love myself. It's just so easy to say, but to really like be that love is a plane of existence. It's probably on the plane of a realized master, isn't it? To actually be that. So it's a work in progress for me, probably for everyone. Chris?
Again, forgive me. This is a theme of what I'm about to say. Forgive me, because I'd like to share another story from this book.
Which book could that be? I think, Chris, you have to buy the physical copy of this book now. I think the e-edition is
it's like 10 times the price of the Kindle.
Your Irish blood is strong.
It's penny pinching. Yeah. No, I did think there was a really cool passage in this book by Leo, and it was about him seeing a vision of Jesus, and the story goes that he was going down to a beach to meditate, and he would often do this, but I think it was Christmas Eve, on Christmas Day or something, and he was going down, and he was trying to find a place that was quiet. There's so many people down drinking and, you know, having a jolly, and he was judging everybody for, you know, not really being in the true spirit of Christmas time. And he was looking at them, you know, oh, you know, these guys, they don't, you know, they're idiots, that kind of mentality. But he went down and he started to meditate, and he then looked out to the ocean, and he saw this white light appear, and it came towards him, and a human then appeared, and it took the form of Jesus, and it spoke. Jesus then spoke to him to say, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do," and that famous line. And Leo was saying that this was a teaching for, you know, unconditional love, to you know, have love for everybody, because, you know, ignorance is kind of dominates this world in so many degrees. But I just thought it was a lovely story, a lovely message to say that this, in meditation, it's going to be detrimental if you don't look upon your fellow man with love and kindness. It's detrimental to you as well, you know, and your progress. But that's going to be the last story that I share from this. I promise. Forgive me.
Probably on this podcast, but no doubt you're going to tell us about more stories when we speak
You know what
offline.
else Leo said? Yeah.
That brings us neatly onto the end of the minutes, really. I was going to talk a little bit about criticism and the sharp scalpel of criticism that we seem to hate, but I think we'll leave that for another minute, because that's also a part of the monologue that Leo has. So just briefly, there's 4 or 5 very good videos and images of Guruji here. I particularly like the one where he's in the car looking ahead. It's like the car's going like 2,000 miles per hour, but he's like taking it in his stride. It looks fantastic. Some very devotional images there, and one good video of him walking along, probably Mother Center. Mike?
Yeah, it's a shot from like a drama movie or something, the one in the car.
Fast
Really
and Furious, or Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And then while you see some of those pictures, he says, like what you read earlier, "I've given you my unconditional love. Don't fail to take advantage of it," right? And then he becomes really emotional. Like you feel like his voice gets a bit like he almost has to swallow, and I feel like because he those words are still ringing, and he's like he still remembers them, and he feels strong emotions when he remembers it.
Yeah, that's probably why he had to almost stop. That probably had to stop talking at that point. He probably broke down, isn't it? That's where he ended that section of his dialogue. Yeah, it must have been quite a profound. It's one of those things that if he said it to you, it probably stays with you for for your whole life, isn't it? Quite powerful. So Deeksha, thank you very much for joining us. That's the end of the minute. How have you found it? I've taken you away from your office. Your manager hopefully won't be too mad at us.
No, I put myself as out in our calendar, and we're pretty chill overall. So all good. And I was so happy to be here with you guys. It was such a nice hour that we spent together.
Deeksha is a very, very busy lady. We've been trying to have this podcast about 20 episodes ago. She's like, no, I'm in India. No, I'm in...
too much happening in life. What to do?
We're blessed to have this association with Deeksha today. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you can join us again.
Yeah, I would love to.
Good listeners, thank you very much. Chris, I know you've added something. How keen are you to read some of that? It's
a prayer, and it's on theme. Shall we do it?
For it? It looks like quite a long prayer, but you can judge it. Why not? Let's do it.
I'll read through it. O Divine Mother, teach me to use the gift of thy love in my heart to love the members of my family more than myself. Bless me that I may love my neighbors more than my family. Expand me that I love my country more than my neighbors, that I love my world and all human brethren more than my country, neighbors, family, and myself. Lastly, teach me to love thee more than anything else, for it is thy love with which I love everything. Without thee, I cannot love anybody or anything. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.